So this video was going to be one long video, but what I've done is I've split it into two. So I've already released the MRE, bit of firelighting and stuff video, and this video now is the carving video, because I think having two videos that's like probably almost an hour long really is going to be a bit much for most people. So yeah, hope you enjoy the carving video, and once it's all dried out and I've done all the bits to it, then I'll obviously post a little update. So before I start doing the carving, I've just come for a little wander just down the track, because I've got a little project I want to do which is a bit weird. So you know the wrap you put around cages and stuff, like, and pallets when they're being palletised. So I found a roll of that outside a shop just around by where I live, and I was doing some litter picking, and I want to make a roof that will fit inside my natural shelter. So I'm going to make a frame out of willow or hazel, and then wrap it around the frame quite a few times, just keep going then the other way to create a roof basically. But I need some really straight staves of like hazel or willow. So I've just come for a wander, and I know of a load of hazel trees just over here. This is about 100 metres away from my camp. There's also quite a few willow trees dotted around here which have been coppiced and fell over in the past. So I'm going to have a wander, see if I want to collect, because I want it to be kind of dead really, but if I get some live stuff and let it dry out, it'll be a bit more easier to work with, and it'll be better stronger as well. So we'll see what we've got. So we've just got back to the tarp and camp, and I have got some hazel staves which they are dead, so they should be okay as long as they're strong enough to do what I want to do. Might need to get a few more, but the weather's getting worse and I didn't bring a waterproof, I only brought my soft shell. So I'm going to pack up. I always bring a carry bag with me when I know it's going to be wet for the tarp, because the bag that it comes in isn't waterproof. So, but yeah, I'm gonna maybe start packing up. I don't know yet. It depends on what the weather's doing. But if the weather kicks in, if the weather gives off, obviously I'll crack on with the carving. If it doesn't give off, then I might have to scoot. But yeah. Okay, so as I said a couple of weekends ago, I was on a bushcraft weekend with Paul Kirtley, with the Staffordshire bushcraft CIC, and we did some carving. So after doing a bit of carving with Paul, I want to try and do a bit more. So while I was there last weekend putting 12x12 up, I brought home some more of the silver birch that Paul used. He cut down and we used. So this isn't the greatest example, but it's been cut down for about a week at that stage. So I've seen this little thing on the internet somewhere that if you soak them in water, they rehydrate basically, the logs do, and they're easy to carve. So I'm going to try and make today, or start making, a spoon. I've done a spatula. I've done a couple of spatulas actually out of different wood, and now I want to try and make a spoon. I have got my spoon carving kit on me, and if the rain holds off, this all will go to plan. So obviously admin with your axe is put your mask in your pocket so you know where it is. So I've got my saw, which I'm going to use for this. I've also got a stick I can use as a bit of a baton to help get the axe through. So what I'm going to be looking for is, just from learning this from Paul, you don't want to use the heartwood, which is the bit in the middle here, okay, because that bit there is where you get the cracking. You want to use kind of below that. Now obviously this kind of comes in, so I'm only going to be able to make a small spoon, okay, or I can try and maybe use that section there and then just use some of this bit here. So I'm going to start chopping it down and splitting it, and then we'll go from there. I am just going to try and make a bit better handle on this baton stick, that'll do. Right, so anything with obviously using axes is work to the rear or the side away from you when you're cutting, and then obviously when you do start cutting and chopping, you do it away from yourself. So I will turn on an angle, kind of to my right, and you cut away. So if you do overshoot it, it's going to hit the floor or knock your leg. So I'm going to try and use, in this case here, because we've got a branch there which will be a knot, I'm going to try and cut it here and use this section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my axe like so and come up a touch. When it comes to this, you need more than you think. There you go, so it's a nice clean split. So you want to try and kind of get stuff with a nice straight grain. As you can see, I've got a knot just here where that stick was, so I'm going to try and use below that. So I'm going to try and get this area now nice and flat. So I don't think it's worth using that bit for now, because as you can see it's quite thin. I've got a bit more thickness on this, so I can make like a bit of a bowl on the end for a spoon. But I am going to keep that here and leave it out so it can stay wet over the next couple of months, and I can use it maybe to do another project soon. So when you're cutting with any axes, you cut in the face like this. Make sure your hand, your thumb is not over that edge, because you might catch it. That thumb on the way away from the edge of the face you're cutting. Obviously use that side of the chopping block, and I'm just going to try and flatten this kind of side out a little bit. My cutting block is a bit wet, so it's a bit slippy. That's why it's moved then. So just kind of trim away, flip it over when you need to. So that knot kind of is in the way a little bit, but it is what it is. So I'm going to use this end here to create the bowl of my spoon, and this is going to be the handle. If this knot's in the way, I can just make a short spoon, but I think it's probably going to be out the way. So I don't see it as cheating, but I see it as making it easier for myself. Is I'm going to use a Sharpie to mark where I want my spoon to be. So as I say, I'm going to try and make the bowl out of this bit here, but I'm going to bring it down a touch. So I'm using more of this piece here, not the heartwood. So I want to get rid of the heartwood. So I'm going to make, so I have the handle about there, start about here. So the handle's going to come up. Obviously all these markings will go eventually, and then I'm going to bring my spoon out like so. So that's kind of the shape I'm looking for. So now I just need to trim back the meat of the wood and start chopping away at it really. So one technique you can do when you're using this is to try and use a stop cut where you want to put the bowl in. So I'm going to have a stop cut here for my spoon edge. So I'm going to put the wood like so. I'm going to line up my saw. I'm just going to make a cut in flat and straight until it meets where the drawing of the spoon is. This wood is quite wet, so it's binding on the saw a touch. That's why everything's moving around, but just take your time and get as close as you can. To the edge of the spoon, so that's generally okay there. And then I'm gonna do the same on this side. Keep the blade nice and flat. You could put your foot on this if it keeps moving around, which I think I'm going to do because it's doing me head in. So put your foot on it, bring it off the side of your cutting block slightly, and just be careful when you're cutting that you don't get anywhere near your leg. And as I say, this blade on this saw is quite old, so it's not probably the sharpest it's been, and you're cutting into very wet live wood here, and these blades aren't really designed for live wood to a certain extent. So I've got as close as I want really now, so I'm going to put my saw away, and now I'm going to use my axe to cut away the excess wood. So when you're carving, just make sure your legs are out of the way. Make sure that you're working this edge, the edge away from you on the cutting block, and you keep your fingers out the way. And instead of trying to use the axe and turning the axe, you turn the piece of wood instead. So you're going to rotate the piece of wood round to get rid of the shape of the wood, to get rid of the wood that you want to get rid of. So what you can do, if you want to get rid of a nice big chunk of wood, is stand your log up, line your axe up, leave enough gap that you're not going to cut into your drawing, and just tap your axe through and it'll split down to that stop cut that you put in. Obviously I've got a bit of a branch in the way, but it has stopped now, the branch has, so that's a good thing. Now I have just split it a little bit where I didn't want it to split by the looks of it, so I'm going to turn it over and kind of just nibble away this way into that stop cut. But anything to do with natural materials, it can all go peat tong quite quickly, or rung very quickly, so just take your time. When you get to this stop cut, if you don't want to take too much off here, just nice little taps with the axe, take off small amounts at a time. Now you've taken some material off, you can, if you want to, make that cut a little bit deeper. There you go, so it's right next to that edge now. So I'm trying to take off as much material as I can with the axe before we go anywhere near a knife. So I'm just nice and controlled swings, little cuts, try and work away from yourself, away from your knees and everything else. So I'm trying to get as much material off by the handle as possible. Okay, and then I want to try and shape the spoon now into that stop cut. So that side now is starting to look a bit better. Okay, I'm going to do exactly the same with the side now. So I'm going to get rid of all this. I'm going to get my axe and my baton and kind of try and take off a decent amount of material down to that cut that I put in. I don't know if there's a hidden knot here or something. It's split. Oh, there's a knot there, I didn't see. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to put a relief cut in at that knot position there, and see if I can get it to split off here. Right, so that bit's split off, as you can see. There is a knot just there, which I'm going to cut that out. It looks like that was just not a very deep knot. So I'm just going to tap the axe. There you go. Chopping down to that stock cut. Shouldn't be much more now. I know this video is going to be quite long, so it might get released in 2 stages, to be honest. So I've got that bit now, and I'm going to try and take off and shape the end of the spoon a little bit. There you go, be careful now because of fingers, but same again, just tap the axe, taking off little chunks. I'm not put my hand all the way down here, I've got my hand right up by the beard of the axe, so I can control the amount of power that I'm putting through the head. And trust me, I'm no expert carver. I'm only kind of doing what I was told by Paul Kirtley, and none of my stuff is brilliant, to be perfectly honest. But this is just going to be a little project for out in the woods, really. And as I say, I didn't cut any of this birch down. It got cut off a private woodland where the bushcraft group is, and there was just some left over, so I asked if I could bring some back, and he said, yeah, Mick said yeah, so I've kind of trimmed what I wanted off. Now it's in its rough shape, what I wanted. Take a little bit more off this bottom side, thin it out a touch, and this side as well. Now, I've cut that to the shape I want, I don't want to use this bit here because that's the heartwood. I want to use the outside here where, if you can imagine the growth rings, they're really tight here, and as they come out, the growth rings get flatter. So instead of being like that, they're more like this, and that's where it doesn't split as much. So I'm going to take the bark off the back, get rid of the bark. And then I'm going to take off the outer kind of few millimeters of wood, which I don't want to use. Kind of shape the back of the head of the spoon a little bit. As I say, this is going to be nowhere near perfect. I am no means a carver, but for a little project when you're out and about, it's fine. So taking off that back part now. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my marker pen out and kind of mark out the wood that I want to use for the side of the pen. So I've got that knot there which I don't really want to use, so I'm going to have this as kind of my bottom edge, come up and around, and then I want to use this bit here in the middle, and then put a bit of a bend on the end so it scoops up, something different really, so something like that. So what I'm going to do now is to do exactly what I've been doing, is take the axe to it and thin it out top and bottom, which I'm going to turn you off for, and I'll bring you back once I've shaped it a bit more. Okay, so I've been going at it for about another 10-15 minutes, and I've got to a point now where I need to start shaping it with a knife. So I've come back under the tarp because it's just started raining. So this is what I've got so far. So as you can see, I've thinned down the handle quite a lot. I've left a decent bit of back on it so I can spoon it out, and then I've reduced the handle size. I'm going to have a bit of a flat-ended spoon on this, so I'm going to spoon it out, but I'm going to leave a flat end on it. And the reason for this is for moving food around in a frying pan. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use my Mora knife, Mora garberg, which is decently sharp. It's to just start taking some of the bigger kind of bits off and just shaping the handle a touch. Anybody who's done carving know wood can act in a weird way in different directions, wherever the grain grows, etc. So you just got to take it gentle, that one side of the kind of piece will carve really nicely, the other side, whichever way the grain's growing, will take off big chunks and you'll lose a lot of material which you don't want to lose. So I'm just going to take it easy and just use my knife just to kind of take a bit off the back of this handle here. And if I want to take some big chunks out, I can just use the assisted kind of push grip. Just keep your fingers out of the way and just use your thumb and your wrist to kind of take big chunks out to reduce the size. So I'm just reducing the size of the handle and the back of the handle here before it hits like the back of the spoon, and just I can use different parts of the knife to take big chunks out. You can use a bit further down, use the tip of your knife if you want to kind of shape the back a little bit more. So then that took a big chunk out of the whole thing then, so I just want to take it easy. Now obviously this is wet wood, so it's going to have to dry out for a week before I can do any final kind of shaping and so on. But I think I kind of like that knot in the end, so I am going to try and keep that knot. It may split and I might have to taking it off, but it is what it is. So I'm just trying to take a little bit off each side of the handle to kind of round it out. Now I have got just one of the cheap carving kits which I am going to try and use to create the bowl and kind of shape the head a bit better than with my big old garberg, which has got a nice big blade in it. So as you can see, I'm just shaping the handle nice and slowly, just taking little slithers off. Until I get to where I'm happy with the thickness of it. Now I'm going to try and shape a bit more of a head into it. So remember to try and stay away from your blood triangle inside here when you're carving. But let's try and take some biggish chunks off that where the back of the handle is. One thing I did forget to mention is any carving, axe work that you're doing, always make sure you have your first aid kit nearby. Mine was behind the cutting block, but always have your first aid kit with a decent set, a decent kind of pad straight away accessible. So this is a medium first field dressing. I have got in my bag here on my belt an FFD, first field dressing. So if you ever do cut yourself badly, an FFD, the ones with the coagulating stuff on them to stop you bleeding to death, I have got one of those. And I've also, as I've said in the past, I do carry a tourniquet just in case the worst comes to it and you do have to do that. So I've got some shape to the handle now. This isn't going to be perfect by no means, but it's my spoon. I'm going to be using it, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like as long as it's functional. It doesn't matter really. So try and take a bit more off this back edge here. Don't want it too thin because you don't want to lose the strength of the wood. Now this flat edge here on this side, it's split off a little bit more than I wanted it to. Just obviously when I hit it with the axe, a little bit more come off than I wanted it to. So I'm going to have to be careful when I'm doing the bowl to make sure that I don't make it too thin. Just trying to make the bowl equal to the handle on the back. So just nibbling off little chunks. One thing I am going to do is, with my knife now, which is a bit more controlled than the axe, is shrink down this front edge. So just nice controlled cuts, fingers out the way. I just want to bring that edge up so you're creating that bowl shape. Now after all this work, I pray to God that the bowl goes okay, because I always have issues with cutting the bowl. I can never get I have got the kind of bowl cutting knife. I can never get it to play correctly. So after all this shaping and work, I hope I can get it to play properly today. I have mainly only done carving with, I know you probably shouldn't, and I'm no expert, with dead wood. And obviously this is live, or live enough to be honest, to be live wood. Obviously it was cut down a week ago. It's been sitting in some water for the last few days to kind of rehydrate it again. So I'm just going to try and nibble away at this top section now to see if I can neaten it up a touch. I'm trying to get my fingers out of the way while I do it. Trying to, this is where the grain seems to go a bit weird here, and it doesn't seem to want to cut very well. So I just want to take it easy. It's going to be quite a narrow kind of spoon, sporky looking thing rather than a nice big wide spoon. It's going to be quite narrow, which is good. That's kind of what I wanted. So by far means it's not perfect. And so I want to kind of leave that flat end on it, if I can. So that's not looking too bad. Maybe need a bit more off this edge here. Flatten this edge off. Now, this is, as I say, where it could all go quite wrong. But I am going to make myself a bit of a guideline, so I'm going to draw on it with the marker pen, kind of a guide. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of as I say, this is where it could all go very quite wrong. But as I say, I've got a cheap set here, just a carving set. 3 different types of knives, so the spoon knife, 2 little small knives. So I'm not very experienced with these, so this could all go terribly wrong. But what I'm going to try and do is hold it at the back so my fingers are out of the way, and just kind of nibble away chunks, like twist it, and just kind of nibble away some chunks of wood at a time, and hopefully that'll be the way it works. I might put my leather glove on to do this so I don't slice my finger off. Well, I want to crack on with this for a bit, and I'll bring you back hopefully once I haven't lost a finger. Okay, so I've been sat for probably another 20 minutes, and this is what I've got as my end result. So for a first kind of crack really at spoon carving, I don't think it's too bad. So I used my cheap set of knives. So I used the spoon carving knife, which is a right-handed one, and the smaller knife to kind of shape around the edges, shape the back of the edge. There is a bit more shaping to do really, but I'm quite happy with that. It's thinning out the back a touch in some places, just so it's not too thick to obviously serve up food and whatever and actually eat with. But the bowl went pretty well. I'm going to let it dry out for about 2 weeks now, a week, maybe 2, and then do some final kind of shaping once it's dried out, and then I'm going to sand it. I don't know if there's another way of getting it kind of smooth. Obviously probably there is with just a knife, but I think I'm just going to use some sanding paper and just sit there and give it a really good sanding to try and take all these like notches out and the little dimples and stuff from obviously the carving. And then I've seen something a while back which I have done is, and I have got one in the kit, is you use a pebble to just a normal smooth pebble off a beach or a river or whatever, and you kind of massage the wood after it's been smoothened, and yet it like kind of seals the top surface of the wood, so when you're using it the wood doesn't absorb whatever you're scooping up. And then I use butcher's block oil to treat the wood for when I'm using it, like so, because obviously it's an oil, so it protects the wood. It doesn't affect you, because obviously it's designed to be used with food, being a butcher's block oil. So yeah, there's a little bit of tidying up to do, but I'm happy with that. So that was just a cheap set I got off Amazon, I think. So yeah, so I'm gonna let that dry out, give it a sanding when it dries out, and then I will do a little update video when I've fully finished it, because this is going to be my new serving up and chomping spoon. So, but yeah, I'm happy with that for an hour's work. So, but yeah, so I think I'm going to call it a day, because it is raining quite a lot at the moment. So, and filming in the rain with just your phone is a bit of a pain. So I think I'm going to have a slurp of water, and then maybe start heading back to the car, because there was another project I wanted to get started today, but I don't think I'm going to have a chance because of the rain. So thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe. This will be quite a long video. I might split it into two, the MRE and then the carving side of it. But yeah, TikTok is one of my main other places where I'll post as well, little shorts, tips and tricks for bushcraft and general camping. Cheers, bye bye.